Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman, Chairman of the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee. The American Fire Service is rich in tradition and culture. A firefighter's life is filled with many emotional highs and lows. Stories of major fires, national disasters, medical calls, firehouse living, and family life are often verbally shared from one generation to another. Many times these stories are lost forever when a firefighter passes away. In an effort to preserve these stories, in 2019, the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee launched a new program of recording audio-video of our retirees' lives. These stories will be shared on our website, gfhbc.org. In 2020, we did not record because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please listen as these firefighters share their life experiences with all of us.
Rich Simmons, I'm 56 years old. I served 34 years and I was a captain when I retired. I am from Greensboro, related to the famous Edie Bailey. She's my mother's sister, my aunt. Chief Danny Shoemate is an uncle, married to another one of my mother's sisters, and their son Brad Shoemate, who's currently still on the fire department. When I joined the fire department, I was single, just had turned 20 years old, knew absolutely nothing about the fire department. I couldn't have told you a pike pole from a water bottle. I had no clue. I mean, I remember in training when they started talking about a pike pole, I had no clue what they was talking about. The driving force of me getting on the fire department, I knew Chief Shoemate, I knew Edie, I knew Skip Nix, and I knew they got 2 days off out of every 3. The job I had before this, I had 3 days off the previous year. And I knew it wasn't an office job, which wasn't meant for me, so I wanted to give it a shot. I came on the process for getting hired. There was some testing involved, including some testing that I didn't really understand. I remember putting some triangle pegs in some holes and circle pegs in holes. And we had to do the physical part out there at the training center, which maybe it's not what they do today as far as the combat challenge, but it was still pretty physical that you had to do then. The salary was $1,207 a month. In my training class, we had 23 people starting out, 20 of us from Greensboro and 3 from Reedsville. At that time, Reedsville sent their people down here to go through Greensboro's training. I mean, there was a lot of stories, a lot of fun, a lot of hard times, but I could name all of the people in that class, but got a lot of memories of a lot of people. I know we lost one, he quit during training, and I think one we lost on the final exam in training, but luckily I still got enough memory I could name them all if I had to. Once I got out of training, moved to the line, I went to Station 4, Engine 4, as a single company station. It also had the power unit and the command post at the time. I mean, my first officer was O.C. Johnson, and you couldn't have asked for any better first officer than O.C. Johnson. He was gonna make sure you trained, he was gonna make sure you studied to pass that 6-month test. Every day, Sunday, didn't matter. He had a little box with index cards in it. He called it his little box of knowledge, and he made sure you was going to pass that test. The other members of the crew on Engine 4 were a 5-person crew, counting myself. But OC was the captain, Bill Brown was the driver, Dennis Murphy, and Rick Ingram. And Dennis didn't serve a full career, and neither did Rick. They both went on to other jobs in the fire service. So a lot of people don't know who they are. As far as fire department pranks that still make me laugh, and once again, I'm going back to training. We had a gentleman in the class that was going through things at the time, and he wasn't getting a lot of sleep. And so during EMT, which is hard to stay awake anyway, he was really struggling staying awake during EMT. Well, to get my pranks going early in my career, at lunch one day we went and bought, a lot of us, I left out a part, a lot of us was taking no-dos to try to stay awake during these EMT classes because they were all day, 5 days a week, tough. We went to the store and bought some Nitol that had basically a Z on it, but if you turned it sideways, that could look like an N for no-dos. And we put them in the no-dos box. And the one that we had that was struggling staying awake, he wouldn't take the no-dos. Oh, y'all get hooked on them pills or nothing but caffeine, and he just wasn't gonna do it. Well, he was really struggling this day. He was like, man, you gotta try one of these. So he did. We gave him a Nitol instead of a no-dos, a sleeping pill. When we took the afternoon break, I mean, he almost couldn't even stand up anymore. We said, look, your body ain't used to it like ours is. You need to take another one. And so we gave him another one. So he had 2 sleeping pills while trying to stay awake in that class, and we had to drive him home that evening. During my career was the union active. I think the union started back up in '88. I was hired in 1987. It was either '88 or '89 they started the union back up, and I joined from the advice of my dad, who was a big union member with the phone company, CWA, Communication Workers. And so I joined, went to a few meetings, tried to get involved, but at that time, that was some bitter old dudes, man. They were mad, they didn't like their job, and all they wanted to do was sue people. That was it. So I got out. Stayed out for a few years. After that, Captain O'Brien, Captain McIntyre, Captain Oakley, a lot of Harley Reese, a lot of them guys took it over, seemed to have a better purpose, and I got back in, and I'm still in today as a retiree. I'm still a member of the union. For most of my career, yes, we did cook and eat together. The latter part of my career, people are different. People don't eat the same stuff. You know, I still tried to get people, even if you're cooking on your own, let's still eat at the table together for the most part. And most of the time that happened. But it just got to the point where this person's on a special diet, this person's on a health kick, I'll eat about anything. And a lot of reason, it wasn't that I didn't like to cook, I might not like what you cook. And so I would rather cook my own so I know I'm gonna enjoy what I'm eating versus a lot of days. In the old days, baked chicken and green beans. I mean, that was it. That's what you ate at the firehouse. It was more common than hot dogs on Saturday. It just, I mean, that's what you ate, and I got tired of chicken and green beans. The significance and why we do hot dogs on Saturday, I don't really know why it started, but we did it because that's what happened when I got there, and as far as I know, that's what's still happening today. And when I do see people that's still working, and I tried to do it the best I could towards the end of my career, on a Saturday or on a Sunday, invite a retiree to come eat with you. Because one thing I miss is Saturday hot dogs and Sunday breakfast. And no matter when in my career, even if we didn't cook or eat together, we still did Saturday hot dogs and Sunday breakfast together. And if you invite a retiree, I'm guarantee you most of them will come. As far as the cubicles that are in the stations now versus the dorm type bedrooms, the privacy's nice, you know, especially now there's more and more females incorporated into the fire department. We had a few when I was hired, but it's a lot more today than it was then. And just being able to have some privacy in your bedroom, in your bathroom, and all that stuff. The downside to it is the fun we used to have in those dormitory bedrooms. I mean, you know, we generally all went to sleep at the same time because you couldn't go in there to go to sleep early because the rest of us was going to come in there later and have some fun. And that eating at the table together is a lot of camaraderie, but right before bed in them dorm rooms was a lot of camaraderie too. Firefighters now in their downtime, as far as talking about or how they spend their downtime, it's more, I think, to yourself, especially in the newer stations. Now, some of your older stations with more common areas, you spend more time together. That's just the way it is. But in these bigger stations, like the previous question, you got more place to go get to be by yourself. I tell people all the time, 30 years ago when I started playing golf with firemen, you make 4 phone calls, you'd have 20 people at the golf course the next morning. Now we got to make 20 phone calls to hopefully get 4 people at the golf course the next morning. It just, people's busy once people had kids, and now we're having grandkids and things like that. Just people don't have the time to spend together like they used to. TV's on at the fire station 24 hours a day. When we first come on, it could be on a sports channel or a news channel, and that's all you could watch till 5 o'clock. People's got TVs in their room now, and I'm guilty as anybody. I mean, as technology advanced, I spent a lot of time sitting in a chair in the corner on my computer doing stuff. As far as active duty people welcoming in retirees when they come by the station or whatever the case may be, maybe inviting them for a meal if you see them out in public. The stories these guys can tell. I mean, I learned a lot from the people that come before me. I'll answer any question, a young group of guys. It's like my whole career. I told anybody, if you want to learn, I'll teach you everything I know. But if you don't want to learn, I'm not going to waste my time. I seen it in my career, and I'm seeing it now. It kind of hit me after I retired. For 34 years, I felt like I could stop in any fire station in this city anytime I wanted to and be welcome. And then about a week after I retired, I was riding by one of the fire stations. I said, I'm like, do I need to knock? Do I need, can I just walk in anymore? I mean, you just don't know. And I've only been gone a little over 2 years, and I go in a fire station now and don't know anybody in there. I stopped by Station 7 a few months ago. Knew the chief and one of the captains. That was it. 9 people there. And I've only been gone a little over 2 years. And a lot of times it's awkward. It seems like the younger generation don't want to communicate face to face as much as prior generations. And so it's like people have trouble introducing themselves. I felt like years ago, I may have never seen you before, but if you come in the fire station, I'd shake your hand. How you doing? My name's Rich Simmons, and try to get to know you. And now you go in a station and somebody say, can I help you? And I say, is Captain whoever here? And yeah, and they'll take me in there, and then that's it, and they're gone. They don't care who I am. Do I remember my first call? I remember it. I can't remember the TV show, but there was a TV show at the time that I loved Fire stations didn't have VCRs or anything like that. So once if you was at the fire station, this TV show come on and you didn't get to see it, you missed it. I'm on Engine 4, the ridingest company in the city. We have not run a call all day. It's about 10 after 8. My favorite show's on. Boom, the beeper goes off. There's a fire alarm at the Goodwill on South Elm Eugene. Pouring down rain. I mean, and I guess thunder or whatever part of that storm's what set the alarm off. But we sit out there for about 30 minutes, and as we get back to the station, the credits are running for my show, and I missed it. We had already started looking into rapid intervention, self-survival, advanced SCBA stuff. The wheels were in motion. 9/11 happened. It sped up. And we did a lot of training on that, and some very intense training on that. And we got to where it's still something that's part of your training today, you know, that it should have been going on when we were hired. Instead, you're talking 14 years later when we really started focusing on that type stuff, and people realizing how hard it was to just get one firefighter out of a building. And, you know, as far as something that changed the way we train, that was even though the call wasn't here, it was a call that affected firefighters all over the country. Who did I look up to as a mentor on the fire department? And I got several. I used to tell people as an officer, once I made captain, that I had a lot of good and a lot of bad officers in my journey to get there myself. And so I tried to make me a good mix. I knew what I didn't like and I knew what I liked. And one of the biggest influences, I had some good ones. I had Butch Burchett, I had O.C. Johnson, I had Cliff Oakley. Eddie Nix probably influenced my way of doing things as much or more than anybody. I also had his brother, Skip Nix, was a great officer. But Eddie was never my captain. So that's got to tell you how big an influence Eddie Nix could be, that he was on A shift and I was on B shift. And so the only times we really worked together is when he would trade or I would trade or whatever the case may be. But everything that Eddie did and everything Eddie stood for, I said, it seems right. And so that's how I tried to pattern being an officer once I made it. What were some of the challenges I faced during my career? And anybody that knows me, and anybody that was one of my supervisors knows the answer to this, is my mouth. I can't help it. If something comes through my brain, it comes through my mouth. I mean, whether you like it or not, and I didn't care what rank you were, whether you were a firefighter riding the back of the truck or a chief of the department, if I knew I was right, I wasn't backing down. Plain and simple. And that's why I made captain after 16 years. Didn't have much opportunity. I kind of learned maybe I need to at least keep my mouth shut long enough to get through this process. But that's the biggest challenge I had, is I got a lot of people that didn't like being my supervisor on the fire department. If I knew then what I know now, would I've still chosen this career? And I'd have to say yes. There's goods and there's bads. There's stuff that you think about that maybe I'd have been better off going this route, but just for the relationships that you build, friends. I mean, I don't know of another job that you can do that. Because yeah, we can work together at the same firehouse, but if we build that relationship, it don't matter if you go to another station on another shift, we're gonna always have that relationship. And if I could go back and change the way I'd done things, what would I change? And I believe that would be the way I expressed my feelings or showed people how I feel. I got two great kids, proud of both of them. Never really told them that or expressed that the way I should have, but I just want them to know I think about them all the time. And then some of your friends that you've had for over 30 years that you're not quite as close to as you used to be, families, kids, just life gets in the way, but you still try to make contact and think about them all the time. Two guys I went through training with, Steve Fuller, Tim Midkiff. You know, we don't get together as much as we should, but we try at least once or twice a year to get together, maybe have breakfast. Wally Underwood. Me and Wally worked together on 4 different assignments. We was at 5 together twice, and 10 and 57. Wally and his wife Kay, they're great people. Tim Gibbs, you know, me and him went to high school together, so we've known each other for 40 years, and we rode the squads together. We got promoted at the same time. You know, it's a lot of things we done together, seen a lot of stuff, and Tim means a lot to me. And some of the guys that influenced my career early is Don Barnett and Hal O'Neill. Everybody knows Hal is Frosty. And they might have got me in a little trouble from time to time, but they welcomed me in, they showed me the ways, and I appreciate all the stuff they did for me. And then later in my career, as I was getting older, and some of the younger people, you know, Ryan Bristol, Dan Bain, John Randolph, we spent some good times together. Jackie Spoon, no longer with us. Jackie died, and you know, we all miss him. And then some of the young guys like Jack Vega and Wyatt Langley, you know, they didn't come in and just treat me like an old fossil or anything. They listened and they learned and they welcomed me into their families, and you know, I just want them to know I appreciate the time I've spent with them. One place I was wrong, I can only think of 2 times I was ever wrong, but one of them, I went out to one of our slower stations there towards the end of my career, and I'd always been pretty active up until that point. So people would see me and rib me a little bit. Oh, you're out there stealing money, sitting out there at 57, just stealing money. And I'm like, hey, I'm just getting the money back from when I rode that squad all them years and wasn't getting any money. You know, I said, I don't owe nobody nothing. I'm just getting what they owe me for all them years. And I really did owe the city of Greensboro and Greensboro Fire Department something. That's making all them relationships. Because if I wouldn't have got hired, I wouldn't know all these guys and girls that I've built these relationships with over the years. I go to the firefighters club meeting now, and I consider them 50 to 100 people that show up at every meeting my friends. I don't know some as well as others, but close. I mean, Brad Smith, Pat Henley, Tommy Brown, Bobby Mitchell, David Brame. I mean, just some people I had that relationship with that moved away and you don't get to see anymore. Frosty O'Neill and Don Barnett, them guys. But I tell people all the time, you know, we're not the closest of friends, but we are close friends. But if you ever want to pattern your life after anybody, that David Brame, that's the dude, man. Like Brame, people just don't know how much he does. He helps everybody and willing to help everybody. I know right now, you know, him and Angie's taking care of her parents, taking care of his parents. They're doing that all the time. They got grandkids they're taking care of. If I called David Brame right now, I said, man, just come out here and walk me to my car. If he wasn't already committed to something else, Brame would be here probably in about 15 minutes and he'd walk me to my car. That's just how David Brame is. Without the fire department, I don't meet him. You know, I mean, he's just that good a dude, and I tell people if his boys end up being like him, I mean, the department's gonna be in great shape. I kind of was around some of them you don't wear an air pack guys early in my career, and I feel like I'm paying for that now. But I also smoked them cigarettes for about 20 years. Luckily, I've been quit now about 20 years, but breathing ain't as easy as what I think it should be right now for me, and I attribute it to my mistakes. And that's what I tried to be better about teaching people as the career went on. Don't listen to these people. If you want to wear that air pack till we get back on the truck, wear it. I don't care what they say. They're not going to be there if you've got emphysema or something later in life. Wear your air pack. You don't get but one set of lungs, man. And all the training I did, speaking of the training we done for rapid intervention and advanced SCBA years ago, and you could just shine a flashlight up in the air and see all them particles floating in the air. I'm just sitting there breathing it in, just, you know, why wasn't I wearing an air pack for that?
Yep.
What would I like for my family to remember? It didn't seem like it to them, because I hear it all the time. But most stuff I did was for them. You know, I tried to build it up. I didn't spoil my kids, but I don't think they went without anything they needed. And they had some nice stuff. They didn't get everything they wanted, maybe like their buddies did, but I mean, all the money I make basically went towards them. Now, yeah, I had some hobbies, played a little golf, done a few things, but I worked a lot and missed a lot of family activities. But in my mind, it was to secure my family, to make sure that, you know, it's just like when I retired, you had to make that choice of how you're going to take your retirement, all of it, leave a like amount to your wife, whatever the case. Well, in 2021, I still had a daughter that was only 13 years old when I retired. And at the time, me and my wife were separated. I still chose to leave her a like amount to make sure the kids would be okay. If what happened to me happened like Pete Hatterton. You know, Pete didn't even get his first check. I wanted to make sure Hannah and Zach, you know, I couldn't take the 100% because we were separated and be greedy. I had to make sure that money was there if I didn't make it to my first check. So that's just what I want them to remember. I might have been tough, I might have been strict, I might not let you have the life that a lot of your friends had, but there was a purpose. What do I miss most about the fire department? Shift change. That's when I had a lot of fun. I mean, you got it twice. When you went into work, there was a shift, and when you was getting off work, there was a shift. And that's when you got to interact with everybody. I mean, as I said earlier, the hot dogs, Sunday breakfast you miss, but the biggest thing I miss, if they would allow me to come in every morning at shift change and just talk junk like I used to, I would probably do it. I only spent maybe 5 years of my career on an engine. The rest of it was spent on squad rescue and ladder trucks. And I really wish there was a way to come up with how much water I flew through the aerial of a ladder truck in my career, because I was on that big bakery fire on Lee Street. I was on the big, when they was building these new UNCG buildings on Lee Street. I was on the big D.H. Griffin fire that we were there all night and found out how long it takes 2 people to breathe down that big tank of air. I mean, just, it seemed like I spent a lot of time up in that basket. Some medical calls, especially the ones with the kids, you want to forget, but you're not. I mean, you want to make a difference, but there was a time when the people in the area that Squad 8 serviced really didn't want to see us showing up, because it seemed like every time we showed up, somebody died. I mean, we kind of had that reputation. We had people say, y'all ought to put a skull and crossbones on the front of that truck, because, and you know, but when it was kids, that's when it was hard. What I found out during my career, and what people need to understand for their careers, because surely it's going to happen. I know it happened. I've heard people that retired 20 years before me talk about it. People change, the job changes. Don't be 20, 22, 25 years old and come in there and expect the 45, 50, 55-year-old people to relate to everything you relate to in the way you relate to it. Because I remember when I was young, and these old dudes, man, they don't know, they need to get on out of here. Well, then you become one of those old dudes, you know, and yeah, physically I might not be able to do what you can do, but mentally I can guide you in the way. It's an old saying, I'm sure somebody said it on here before. The best job, or the best things that an old firefighter can do for a young firefighter, is teach him how to be an old firefighter. And just teach what you know, lead the way, and just hopefully you leave an impact and somebody, you know, learns something.
In closing, the Greensboro Firefighters History Book Committee hopes you have gained a greater insight into the dangers, the challenges, and emotional events that have influenced and shaped the American firefighter.